2006 Acura TL front engine mount replacement. I'm Brian Elson from How To Automotive. I'm going to walk you through the steps of replacing those. So on this particular job, we're going to be using factory replacement parts. I highly recommend you do that. I will leave a link in the description of this video for the parts that if you need to pick those up yourself. One of the first things you're going to do is take a floor jack like this with a block of wood. I'm going to roll it under the car and place it underneath the oil pan. So the setup will look like this. You'll slightly be on the oil pan, and a little bit of it will be touching the exhaust manifold, but it's okay. You want the majority of the weight and everything pushing up onto the oil pan. Like I said, you want to use a block of wood to spread the load out. You don't want a pinpointed spot on the oil pan that could crack the pan, so you want to spread the load out by putting a block of wood under there. Then you want to jack the engine just a little bit, just a couple little pumps to take a little bit of pressure, maybe a quarter inch or so off the mounts. The engine mount closest to the radiator fan here is considered the front engine mount. So that's the mount we're replacing in this particular video. What we're going to do is take out the 17mm bolt here, and if you follow the bracket over, the 17mm bolt there. I'm going to use a 17mm half-inch drive socket with a half-inch drive extension here that happens to be about 3 feet long, and I'll remove the bolts. Okay, now that you got those nuts off of that bracket, you can just lift this portion of the bracket out, set it aside. Next, we're going to remove the 14mm bolt right here. To get that bolt off, I'm going to use one of my favorite tools in my toolbox. It's my combination wrenches. This particular one is a 12-14. It's made by Mountain. They're ratcheting wrenches, but they're about 3.5 feet long. So you can apply a ton of torque on them, and they have a little switch on the side that you can flip them. And they have these like you know, the serrated type teeth that go around the bolt. So you know, if you have rounded out bolts and stuff, it works really well on those type of style of bolts too. So I'll leave a link for these wrenches in the description of the video. That way, if you want to pick those up, you can get those. So now that the bolt on the front of the mount is removed, I'm going to switch my extension over to a 14mm wobbly. So I'm going to start by removing the rear bolts. So my setup's going to look like this. So I'll go ahead and remove that bolt. Then after I remove this bolt, I'll switch over to the back bolt back here. And to see it better, if you take this little rubber boot right here and just kind of pry it, after removing the back bolt back here, then I'm going to swap over to the back bolt here, and this is where the wobbly socket comes in handy, so you can get down in there. Okay, after removing the two back bolts, then you want to take this rubber boot right here and kind of pull it out and flare it out of the way, and then you can see the bolts below in the front bolt. So you're going to remove that bolt there, and then you'll do the same thing over here. You'll flare the rubber boot out of your way, and then you can see the bolt below, and you'll take that. After you get all 4 of the bottom bolts removed, you can slide the motor mount around into a position where you can tilt it on the side, and you got to reach underneath it, and underneath it is a vacuum. I'll show you on the new part here. So as you unbolt it, you're going to flip it up on the side a little bit, and then right underneath there's a port where a vacuum line goes. It's plugged in, and that vacuum line controls dampening in the mount, so it makes it stiffer and softer depending on your ride. So I got it in an area where I can flip it on the side, and then I reach my hand, I don't know if you can see this enough, but I reach my hand underneath and you unplug the vacuum line. So here is the vacuum line I'm speaking of, so you'll just reach around from underneath and unplug that line. Now that you got the vacuum line unplugged, rotate the mount as close as you can towards the driver's side of the car, and what you're going to do is you're just going to use your hands and kind of push the radiator hoses out of the way and pull the mount straight up. As you're pulling the mount up, you're going to have to twist left and right to get it kind of to maneuver through all the harness and stuff, and it'll come out though. As you can see, I got the engine mount about 90% out of the car, and it's hitting the cover right here. So I'm just going to pop the couple screws right here on the little 90-degree turns on the cover. And I'm just going to pop the cover up a little bit like that. Then I'll just pop the cover off and set it aside. And now I'm able to finish working my motor mount out of the car. So as you can see, I got my old mount and my new mount sitting side by side, and it's pretty common for the mount to break like this. So after you get your mount out, you need to take off this rubber boot from the old mount and transfer it over to the new mount. So now I'm going to reinstall my new mount, so I'm going to slide it down here, and kind of the best way to do it is kind of put it sideways and then twist it and rotate it in there, and you'll kind of twist left and right as you're going in to get it in. And as soon as I get it down there, the first thing I'm going to do is plug in my vacuum line for the bottom. That way I don't forget about that. And then I'll slide it back into place. Also, as you're feeding the motor mount down through here, you want to make sure that the motor mount, when you get it to its final resting position, the part with the little ears that go in like this need to be facing towards the firewall of the car, and the rounded edge like this needs to be facing towards the radiator. Now that the new mount's in there, I'm going to just lift it at an angle like this where I can reach my hand underneath and plug the vacuum line in, and then I'll slide it back into the position. You also may need to pump the jack handle a few more pumps, raise the engine up a 1/4 inch or so more to slide it in position. So also, if you're struggling to plug the vacuum hose in, from underneath the car there's a little port right here that you look and you can see the bottom of the motor mount and the vacuum hose. So you can probably, with needle nose pliers, plug it in from underneath. Once you get the mount in there, if you can plug the vacuum in line from up top, great. If not, you can do it from underneath, like I showed you in the clip before. So now you can go ahead and slide the motor mount in position and line up all 4 of the bolt holes and start the 4 bottom bolts. So the mount will be loose, and you're going to have to jack the engine up quite as high as you can possibly get it. And then once you get all 4 of the bolts started on the bottom, then I recommend you start the bolt here. So basically, and you may have to raise your engine up a little bit or lower your engine down to get the bolts all started. So once you get them all started, then we're going to tighten the bottom bolts first. You can torque all 4 of the bottom bolts down to 40 foot-pounds. To help me start the bolts, I put a little piece of paper in the socket, stuff the bolt in there, and that way I can hold the socket upside down like that and run it down in there and start the bolts. After getting the 4 lower bolts torqued down to 40 foot-pounds, you can go ahead and torque this bolt here down to 47 foot-pounds. Now you can go ahead and put this bracket on, and you want to put it on where the ear like this is pointing towards the firewall of the car. So you'll slip it on over the bracket like that. Start the 2 nuts and torque those down to 40 foot-pounds. So after getting that bracket back on, last step would be is to put on your top engine cover, and that'll complete the job of replacing the front engine mount. I'm going to leave a link in the description for the parts on this video and also the tools I'm using. I'm Brian Essa from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this, and I'd like to thank you again for watching my videos.